Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you.
Good morning and welcome to Career Talk. I'm Soraya Seedat, and today we're driving into a world that's changing faster than any other, the digital economy. From data scientists to app developers and AI innovators, these are the new architects of opportunity. My co-host this morning is the esteemed Mzwandile Riba. Good morning, Mzwandile. Welcome to Korea Indaba Radio.
Good morning, Soraya and South Africa. I'm super excited to be here. I do have a face for television, I am told, but the excitement is still very real. Listen, over the next few hours, we're exploring innovation careers, how technology, creativity, and human potential are shaping the future of work in financial markets, both locally and globally.
And we're not just talking about it, we're playing it. Today's show is a fun career game show that we're calling Career Ladder, where our guests climb their way up the innovation ladder one question at a time.
And before we roll the dice, let's unpack what the digital economy really means. It's more than coding or AI. It is every business powered by data, digital tools, and innovation.
Exactly. In fact, according to the World Bank, the digital economy already accounts for over 15% of global GDP, and it's growing 2.5 times faster than the traditional economy. Here in South Africa, the ICT sector contributes nearly 8% of GDP, employing over 250,000 people, and those numbers are rising.
And beyond the numbers, it's creating new types of work. Digital designers, product analysts, cloud engineers, innovation strategists, digital marketers, and even ethical AI consultants. Some of these roles didn't even exist 5 years ago.
We're here to demystify a lot of the new buzzwords as well. But before we get into it, Mzwandile, tell us a bit about your role, your career and background, and how you have been impacted by the digital economy.
Soraya, I did spend a long and beautiful and happy 6 years at the JSE before moving across to ABSA CIB. And look, in my current world of client solutions, technology drives the storing of information that one helps build the analytics that in turn inform business intelligence that leads to the optimization of the solutions, right? We cannot ignore the power of information and the ever increasing need to ensure that we have it at our fingertips at all times, right? So building dashboards that ensure we identify our clients' needs in real time while being able to listen and learn is all important. I believe that every system needs to be able to adapt continuously to an ever-changing world. It's a cycle that requires input and output at all times.
Absolutely. I think it keeps us fresh as well, and allows us to learn new skills as we go through our career journeys. And I think it keeps us ahead of the curve, not forgetting allowing us to make money.
Of course. Now, let's talk about how we are going to make this conversation fun and a little competitive.
So enter our career ladder game. Each guest will join us for about 20 minutes and climbs the career ladder by answering 5 questions about their career and the digital economy. Each answer can move them forward or send them sliding back. So they better be on their toes this morning.
Absolutely. We've got tiles like Innovation Boost. It lets them jump 3 steps ahead, or the AI glitch that takes them back 2 steps. The goal is to reach the top and become today's digital trailblazer.
I can't wait to get playing. Over the next 3 hours, we will be joined by an incredible lineup of guests, each representing a different face of the innovation world in financial markets.
That's right. From strategy to data science, from trading infrastructure to cloud innovation. Our guests today have been shaping how our financial ecosystem operates behind the scenes.
They've all built careers at the intersection of finance, technology, and innovation, showing us that the digital economy isn't just about startups, it's also about transforming established institutions as well.
First up, we'll be joined by Nomzamo Mazia, a corporate strategist who's led innovation at the JSE, Old Mutual Bank, and ABSA, to name a few. She's now an independent strategist, helping business navigate digital transformation.
We will then speak to Merlin Raja. He's the head of electronic sales at ABSA. He's the driving force between ABSA's high frequency trading activity. He brings cutting edge technology services right to clients' fingertips.
Our third guest is a man I used to call and still call the double doctor himself, Kobolwake Dube, head of data and research at Navigare Securities. He is a data scientist extraordinaire and a quantitative analyst who turns complex data sets into real trading intelligence.
Later in the show, we will be welcoming Mohammed Ismail, a specialist in global markets at Standard Bank. He's going to help us understand how technology is redefining liquidity, risk, and collateral efficiency.
And rounding off our lineup, we've got Vimal Singh, head of data solutions at the JSE, leading the charge in cloud innovation, data modernization, and analytics-driven market solutions.
Wow, 5 incredible guests and professionals. They have 5 journeys through finance and innovation, and one shared goal this morning: climb the career ladder and reach the top as today's digital trailblazer.
To remind everyone, each guest will take on 5 questions about their work, the digital economy, how innovation is changing their world. With every smart answer, they move up the board. But watch out. A wrong move could see them sliding back.
Looks like we have a fun show for this morning. Before we get into it, we do have a couple minutes before our first guest joins us. So I thought that we could simply unpack what the digital economy actually means. It's a phrase that gets used a lot but can feel vague. To me, the digital economy is anything where value is created, delivered, or captured primarily through digital technologies. That's data, cloud systems, APIs, platforms, and the human skills that interpret and act on data. In financial markets specifically, that means that the instruments, services, and infrastructure that we once built on paper and human processes are now driven by software, connectivity, and real-time data flows. Trading, clearing, and settlement, they're all digitally driven right now. It creates 2 big things. One is exponential efficiencies. We can do more with less time and lower cost. And 2, newer roles and career paths. When infrastructure moves digital, new specialists are needed: data engineers, cloud architects, product managers, and people who can translate between business and tech. It's also worth saying that the digital economy isn't just about technology replacing jobs. It reconfigures work. Some roles become automated, yes, but whole new functions also appear. We've seen that practically evolve in our organizations as well. It's less about robots taking over jobs and more about jobs change shape. That's an important mindset for anyone listening who's thinking about career security. I think we need to embrace technology, and the guests that we have this morning are going to enable us to give the listeners some insight into different career paths and the skills that are required. We're also going to with the questioning through the board game, we're also going to unpack what our guests are actually thinking about in the future, so that you can have a heads up on what to look out for and what skills to be gaining as well. I think for briefly, Mzwandile, I also want to talk about some structural shifts. There are three I always watch. So cloud migration, data commoditization, and AI or automation. They are distinct but powerful. So cloud migration, for example, financial markets used to operate primarily on-premise data centers with heavy capital expenditure. Now, by moving into the cloud, analytics can become scalable. It reduces time to market and allows teams to iterate faster as well. But it also changes what talent is valuable. Knowledge of cloud architecture and secure configurations becomes critical. Data commoditization is the second thing that I like to keep an eye on. Markets used to be a product, market data is a product that used to be bought. Now, the way that it's being packaged, you can stream it and analyze the data and think of delivered analytics, alternative data sets, enrichment layers. These are all business models in their own right. Firms that want to transform raw data feeds into product-ready insight are actually gaining a lot of success globally as well. We've seen some of the biggest stock exchanges in the world actually transform their business models by offering more ready-made services to their marketplaces. I think the last thing that I'd like to mention is the use of AI and automation. So in trading, for example, pre-trade and post-trade processes get automated. AI helps detect market anomalies, do sentiment analysis, and create predictive signals. But here's the caveat: AI is a tool; it's not the be-all and end-all. People who understand the models, their limits, and how to use them responsibly are in huge demand. It's at the cutting edge of the career spectrum at the moment, and definitely anybody thinking about getting into these fields will be highly in demand, or well, at least I think so. Mzwandile, what do you think about some of the concepts that I've mentioned? Have they impacted you, and what are your thoughts?
Firstly, a mouthful. You know, it's always interesting to try and keep up. And automation is very key. It's making life a lot easier. It's making being able to consume large data sets much easier. And it is really making the world of navigating the streams of information that we receive a lot easier. And it's very important. It's almost like a pet, right? That you need to train as well to really configure to your style of how you want the data to be condensed and the information to be presented. I mean, CEO reports, for instance, I think a lot of analysts these days consume those, through automation kind of co-pilots, if we can call them that. And I guess one particular provider has already coined that name, and this has become very important, I think, in our world and in the world of finance, and really how we continue to navigate that.
Amazing. Okay, well, we've definitely spoken a lot and hopefully given the listeners some insight into the technological world that's driving financial markets. But I think we're eager to roll the dice at the moment. Our first guest is Nomzamo Mazia, and we have her online. So let's get ready to roll the dice and join us as we climb the career ladder. You're listening to Career Indaba, and I'd like to welcome Nomzamo Mazia. Good morning, Nomzamo.
And Nomzamo?
Hi, everybody. See what technology does, and you have to keep updated. I'm sorry about that glitch there. I hope I don't slide down the ladder. I was listening to you and how we're going to have this conversation. So I hope that little glitch doesn't, do me badly.
Yeah, I was about to warn you there, but we'll let that one slide.
Okay. Awesome. Pleasure
So,
to join you guys.
Nomzamo, it's great to have you on Korea Indaba Radio. You've led innovation from inside some of the biggest institutions in South Africa. So we know that you're no stranger to climbing ladders.
Oh, I don't know about that. During my career as a strategist, it's been everything. Well, climbing this ladder has been ladders to slides, right? Sometimes it's all about that PowerPoint slide.
That's true. Sometimes you're just rolling out PowerPoints one after the other.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Nonzama, tell us a bit about yourself.
Whew. That's quite a big question. But I would label myself as a problem solver, right? And I think people and organizations are largely trying to solve, two primary questions as they think about problem solving. I look at them as two sides of the same coin, right? The first question is, what is our goal and what is our intention? Where are we going? What are the opportunities? And most people would look at that as strategy development and strategy execution. The other question is, well, how do we navigate uncertainty? What are kind of the risks that we have to play with as we kind of navigate our strategic intent? And that's your risk management. I've had the pleasure of playing in both fields. And within risk management as well as strategy. So over the last 17 years within financial services, I've worked as a risk manager. So doing everything from credit risks, which is just, how do we price for borrowing, how your banks lend you money, to everything from market risk, which is your trading. And I know that you're going to have guests here which speak to trading, so I'm not going to go into market risk anymore. And then kind of joined institutions where I've had the opportunity to also flex the strategy kind of lens, where it was building digital banks, how do we advise, corporate or C-suite or executives on how they should transform, what strategies they should follow. So I've had a mixed bag there, and it's always been within financial services, whether it was a bank or with a startup. I've had that opportunity. But my career started off in risk management. It wasn't all glamorous. I started after doing my bachelor's of science in mathematical statistics. I was very much a quant, a nerd in the background, crunching numbers. I started off in the bank, just doing risk management, and have had the pleasure, as I said, kind of as I grew in roles to more strategic roles within, whether it's digital banking or even advising the CEO, for example. So the beauty of both worlds.
I have been told that risk and strategy are two sides of the same coin. So I think as a strategist, you're always looking at, you're optimistic, but you're always looking at how can this project go wrong or fail, and that's the risk aspect to it. And I guess as a risk manager, tell me, do risk managers ever look at the upside though, or are they just completely
No, and oh, this might be controversial, but no, actually, when I started off and I grew my career, a lot of people were like, a risk manager in our strategy world, because you guys are always looking at what could go wrong, what is the downside, but I think during your career, you're kind of fortunate to meet mentors who identify kind of skill sets in you. And they said, well, you're not just the person who can look at downside. You're actually somebody who can identify the opportunity. And actually at the heart of it, strategy is about making trade-offs. And in those trade-offs, it's understanding, what is the risk appetite I have, for each course. So I think it's a balancing act. And I find in my strategy, I'm always balancing the two, right? You don't just want to go down a path where the risks are too high and there won't be any benefits.
That's so cool. I think you touched on a really important point there about mentorship. And in preparing for the show last night, I just was thinking about how important or significant has mentors been in your career. And do you think that a mentor always has to be that innovative, or sort of push you out of your comfort zone? Have there been some that have been innovative? Can you give us some insight? So I think it's important, because our listeners, in looking for mentors, it's important to pick the right one as well that can help you take steps.
Wow. No, I don't think that mentors always have to be innovative. The best kinds are innovative. But when I started off within risk manager, mentors are really there to model what's possible for you along a career path, right? And to kind of help you navigate it. So I had a very traditional risk manager. And in fact, they started off like their 40-year career was in risk management only, but I had to see what excellence looked like in that field and to kind of help them navigate me through it. But did they take me out of my comfort zone? I think they pressed me towards excellence. And that's what you get from that type of mentor, right? They press you towards creating a greater, almost being excellent at a certain field. I think my innovative mentors came much later when I needed to pivot, when I needed to understand that, okay, I'm in this career path and this is what I'm known for, but how do I change course here? And I needed somebody who was used to that dynamic. How do I pivot? How do I change? How do I move between the gray? And I think that type of mentor you need to seek out is somebody who will push you, not just push you in terms of skill, but push you as a person. Push you in your thinking, push you into new fields, right? Not into your existing field. So I think you have to balance it. I would say, if possible, I'm not being prescriptive, but early on, I would seek mentors who are maybe more traditional and model the kind of career path that you've chosen for excellence. And then along the way, find mentors who will push you as an individual. So I think it's a very key. Yeah.
I think you made a few really good points there, right? So now, is it a luck of the draw? How does one very young and early in their career seek out a compatible mentor?
If I have to be honest, just showing up as yourself. Because I think the mentee meets the mentor as well. They have to like being, part of your world as well. So I think that, did I always, was I that ambitious kind of graduate who was like, oh, I want to be mentored by the CEO or by this exec? You don't always get to choose who kind of mentors you. I think showing up authentically brings people within your sphere who are then attracted to you. And you kind of have this mutually beneficial relationship. So I think just showing up as yourself. As I said, I was very quiet. I never used to say a peep. In fact, Soraya, you would never get me on this program when I started, So it's really understanding who you are. And as you show up authentically, you'll kind of attract the people who are right for you.
I think authenticity is so important. We live in a world where everybody is trying to fake it until they make it, which is really important as well, right? To an extent. To an
Yeah.
extent, because sometimes if you want that role, you've got to look the part and start thinking in that mindset and filling those shoes before you even have it. But you have to have authenticity, because without authenticity, you're not going to be an original character. You're not going to be able to move forward, because I think that lack of authenticity is what shines so clearly when you're engaging with people. And although we live in a digital and a technological world, the human aspect is so real and so important as well.
Spot on, spot on. I do think in the beginning, there's a little bit of fake it till you make it. You're right, if we're being humble and honest. But eventually, authenticity wins.
Okay, great. So I think we can get started with the game. I know you're excited to beat all our other guests this morning.
No
So
pressure.
no pressure at all. Think of it as a boardroom meets board game. Are you ready to play?
Yes, ready.
Okay, great. Okay, so Nomzamo, you've led transformation projects at organizations that were traditionally very corporate. What do you think is the biggest barrier that holds large financial institutions back from truly embracing digital innovation?
You can't get my answer any more fast. There's a famous saying that says culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? It means your best laid out strategy cannot survive a bad culture. Having led transformation projects, as you said, it's all about mindset. So the underlying culture which drives the adoption of what you're trying to bring into transformation, really. And I know that you guys are keen for demystifying all these words. Transformation is just really introducing a new way of work. And most of the times, at least the projects that I've been involved in, that's technology based. And what you'll find is that the human element is the biggest part of change management that we have to manage as we kind of implement these new solutions. You'll find that people, they buy into, the big tech, oh, we're implementing an AI solution. But what you find from a human nature perspective, they go back to their old ways of thinking. And that is really around culture and how they think about agility and flexibility, right? So I think, and maybe this is the case, I think actually the case for most organizations, culture is really led from the top and influenced from the top. So if you have a great leadership group of people who can actually influence culture, that's actually the best thing.
Nomzamo, that's brilliant insight. And I guess as the game goes, that's a solid move forward. You're on tile 5, digital mindset unlocked. Now, you've worked across both strategy and operations, right? Which often pull in different directions. I mean, Soraya spoke about two sides of the same coin. What's one innovation or transformation initiative you're most proud of? And what did it take to get it right?
Sure. I've been fortunate to be part of many, but I think that the one that I'm proud of most was my involvement in bringing Time Bank to the market. So Time Bank was a digital first bank, right? I don't glorify technology or technological advancements for the sake of technological advancement. I'm not one of those strategists. It really has to be one that is life-changing for somebody at the end, right? In this case, customers. So how do we utilize some of these capabilities, whether it's AI, whether it's cloud, to make banking more efficient? For me, although Time Bank wasn't a transformation because it was a new startup, it was a transformation of an industry. So how does an industry think about disrupting its own business model whilst utilizing things like cloud? And when I was part of Time Bank, the real case was like, your private suite customers are used to getting discounts on services and things like that. But how do we offer that to service ordinary clients? And that means we leverage technology to make it cheaper. So I think as long as, for me, technology is revolutionary if it has an evolution to the industry that is currently at play or makes the industry better.
Awesome. Nomzamo, before we continue, we would like to take a small break, if you don't mind.
Thank you. That gives me a bit of relief, right? And get my game face.
But we still have more questions, but yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. The conversation becomes a movement. The idea becomes an economy. This is not another event. It's an activation of Africa's potential. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, where 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, and 20 bootcamp zones collide to create the future of work. From youth innovators to corporate pioneers, From township traders to global brands, every voice counts. 2 days, one goal. Aligning Africa's skills with its opportunities. Career Indaba, Expo and Bootcamp 2026. 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, where skills meet, where Africa works.
Welcome back to Korea and Daba Radio. Before the break, we were joined by Nomzamo Mazia. She is a corporate strategist slayer here in South Africa. And she was talking about bringing Time Bank to market. I think we began playing the Career Ladder board game with her, and Nomzamo, that answer definitely put you on tile 10, innovation in motion. I think it's important about turning strategy into real movement, and you've demonstrated that clearly with the innovation that you've been part of. As the world shifts towards automation and AI, many people in the finance world worry about being replaced. What skills do you think professionals in financial markets need to future-proof their careers?
Cool. I think a key data point, which is what I'm seeing as it relates to the job markets and how that's shifting, is a report which is published by the World Economic Forum, the job report. And I think the latest one was published in January of this year, right? And they looked at like what's shifting and what's changing the job markets for us. And kind of the key drivers that they pointed to is, number one, what we've been talking about is technology and some of the technology changes. So to your point, what skills do we need as we adopt these new technologies? But I just want to list some other things as we think about what skills you need, right? The other is talking about the green economy and how that is creating a shift. That's important for us, right? As a country, we're coal. We're largely coal enriched, right? And coal fueled. How do we think about jobs as they migrate from coal to renewable energy? And the other thing is demographic. For us, largely in South African context, it's not so much of a pull, but if you think about Africa being the youngest kind of demographic in the world, that means there's more younger people, there's jobs, you have to be more competitive. So the volumes of types of jobs that you have to have in the market needs to be, meet the demand, but you also have to be competitive in that regard. And then from an economic, the fourth one they list is economic uncertainty, right? I think you also mentioned that, well, at least I know for myself, it wasn't just about what job I wanted to do. It is this job lucrative? And that's quite a key thing to kind of get to the cost of living. And largely we play the fifth kind of factor that they name is geoeconomic. So we play in a global sphere. So we have to understand how globally we're shifting. When I started off, I was very, I was told, look to the West, look to Europe, look to America, right? And what's happening there. When I went back to school to do my business master's, it started becoming, think of China. You need to learn Mandarin, and what that does for, your competitiveness and how you shift. So yes, all of these factors mean that, are jobs going to be lost as a result of all these changes? Yes. And I think they say like 92 million jobs are going to be lost. But the upside is 170 million jobs are going to be created on the back of technology advancement and the rapid changes in our world. So that presents an opportunity. But to meet that opportunity, what does that mean? We have to skill, right? We have to upskill and think of the traditional kind of industries we are going to go into very differently. I know you asked me about financial services, but if you're going to go into healthcare, think about what technology will do in healthcare. And in this regard, I know you're going to be speaking to a lot of guests, what technology is doing to in financial services is opening it up, right? It means that your skills have to be transferable. You also have to have a basis of understanding technology. You don't have to become an engineer, an AI engineer or a data scientist to make it. You just have to understand the technologies and how to play within your chosen kind of designation. So I think, yes, how it's changing it is making you need to be aware and gain the skills technically. But I think another skill you need to have is being adaptable, because it's ever changing.
Sure, that's excellent. And in fact, moves you to tile 15, right? AI ally,
Oh, wow.
where
Wow.
basically humans plus machine
Moving.
wins.
Awesome. Awesome.
Now, so if you were designing a 2030 strategy for South Africa's financial sector,
Mm.
what would be the single most important digital or innovation focus area?
Hmm. You know, my ambition for the financial services sector hasn't changed since I was young and naive. I wanted to see how it could open up, how it could be more accessible, how it could be more affordable. And I think for me, that's where open banking becomes such a revolutionary and exciting kind of thing that we need to explore. Um, so I don't want to, I almost want to demystify what open banking means, right? Because I know in Europe and other markets, they may be more used to it. But basically, it's thinking about your bank account or even your financial services as a Netflix account, right? So instead of like keeping your data in like one device, in this regard, it would be a DVD. That's how old I am. In one device. So you take a DVD and you put it into a DVD player to watch one movie. You know, open banking kind of turns financial service into a streaming potential where you give permission to various kind of financial services, fintechs, to safely share data, by the way, so that it opens up options for you, whether you're trying to save money, whether you're thinking about your pension fund, but it's not really a closed loop. And I think this is so powerful because I don't know about you guys, but I started off, my main bank is still the bank that I got as a student.
Yes,
So
same.
yeah. So, and you know, like to get to, it feels like I'm also playing a ladders game there. To get to different options, I need to, you know, perform well. And I'm not as open to others. But, you know, the data shows that the country by in itself is largely financially included, right? So 80% of people who have access to bank accounts, and the fact that we multi-bank. So what do I mean by this? The data also points to, but with all that, we are underserved. We are not servicing the needs of people within this ecosystem. So I think that if you think about open banking, it opens up opportunity, right? Open banking is not about, you know, kind of banks losing control, but it's actually about customers being empowered. So yeah, if we can open banking as a streaming service.
That's visionary right there. Um, it's going to put you on tile 20, digital visionary. You're almost at the top, Nomzamo. You have one question to go. So last question, behind every big transformation, there's human resistance. You mentioned this earlier. What's one leadership lesson that you've learned about inspiring people to embrace change?
um, Co-creation. I think everybody's a leader, like we lead ourselves, right? And I think people have their own motives, they have their own motivations, and if they don't feel included in whatever transformation journey you're taking, you'll find that you'll have the effects that I talked about where people are not wanting to change. So I think including people on the journey, it really, number one, gets buy-in is what I'm talking to, but it also brings in new points of view. I've been known to do this. If I'm the strategist in the room, I deal with strategy and nobody else gets to speak up. But actually, that's the wrong way, right? We all come into the room with different perspectives. So it's important to kind of invite people into the room, even if you feel like that's my domain. I'm the risk manager. I should be looking at risk. There might be a different view in the room. So I think co-creating is the biggest kind of lesson for me.
Sure, and that's it, right? You have
Wow.
climbed all the way to tile 25, the
Okay.
strategic trailblazer.
Wow.
Congratulations, Nomzamo,
Wow.
and
Thank you. Thank you.
awesome as the first player in the game.
No,
Thank
it
you
is
so much for
amazing.
joining us, Nomzamo. I think you've shared a lot about openness, if I can just touch on that. Open banking, open to ideas, open to, as you said, embracing change. And I think that openness, if people, our listeners, could employ that, it's essentially an abundance mindset, right?
Precisely.
There's enough for everybody, and we can all benefit. It doesn't have to, we don't have to be closed and try to keep everything for ourselves. So I think
Exactly.
that's definitely the lesson that you shared with us this morning. Do you want to? I think you touched, we do have a little bit of time before we move on to our next guest, and I'm
Mhm.
really dying to understand your whole time bank journey. I think it's really topical at the moment, particularly because, if I'm not mistaken, they are the biggest bank by users at the
Customers.
moment. That must be and such an important point in their journey as well.
Mm.
And it must be, you must feel extremely proud of the fact that you were there at the beginning. Do you have any insights for somebody who is has their own startup, who's thinking of a fintech idea?
Mm.
Some insights on how to get going and keep up the resilience, because I think it gets a bit tough, especially when you're people see the glamour now in terms
Yeah.
of time bank being so big and having so many customers. But when you're down in the trenches, what's some of the insight that you can share to our users?
Sure. Um, don't be afraid to fail. I think great innovation, if you talk to the people and you ask them, how did you do this big thing? They'll tell you that we failed our way forward, right? It was through missteps, through trying things. It's and not, which is why it's important. I was talking earlier about culture. So if you have a very like stiff culture, failure would be the end of you, right? You'd call off the project. And I think what really you need to have as you think about a startup or anything new that you bring into market is be prepared to fail, and live with failure as actually just a data point. Oh, that didn't work. How do I pivot, right? And I think the other thing, pointing to failure, you have to have that resilience, that grit. It gets hard. Startups are not well funded within our economy. So when the money's not making sense and then your effort is at high, but your money's low, at that point, you really have to pull through. And I think grit is the biggest thing. And then the other thing is sometimes it's not the big technology which solves our biggest problems in our kind of society. So sometimes always think about technology and data as a tool to solve a bigger problem. Never that's why I say don't glamorize the thing. Think about what it solves for. And I think if you're constantly in that state of, am I solving a big enough problem? You will never find yourself, on the back foot of any kind of endeavor.
Okay, that's so amazing. I think that failing forward is something really difficult as well, because for
Mm.
us A-type personalities who are modeled to succeed and we want to succeed, it's really difficult to take on that failure. So, but I guess with everything else, we've got to learn to accept those challenges and
Yeah.
step forward from them. Swandile, any pressing last questions for Nomzamo while we have her? Like she said, she's really
Um,
difficult to get hold of.
Take it easy. Yeah, take it
We
easy on
have to optimize this time, right?
take it easy on me.
No, I think we spoke about authenticity earlier, and I'm gonna ask Soraya to remind me the phrase she used to describe you earlier. I think it was a
Corporate
strategic
slayer.
slayer. There you go, right? And none more poignant than that. And I mean, we have a similar background mathematically, and I know that.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I failed an exam was at varsity, right?
Yeah.
which which
Talk
is
about
which is always an eye opener when one gets into the real world. And I think, I mean, we live in a world now where the requirements for people entering the job world, and especially in financial markets, given that this is actually where we are right now, is really going up. People are required to have masters, PhDs, etc. I mean, what message do you have? And obviously, the technology is really advancing at a very fast pace. What message do we want to give, to the youngsters out there, Nomzamo, in terms of your journey, let's call it from an academic level, going into the job world, working in a risk environment, and finding yourself where you are now, where you are pretty much slaying everything in front of you?
Oh, sure. That's such a difficult question because I think about the job market when I entered it, or at least my career when I entered it, and I think about the job market now. It's night and day. I can never, I mean, I give it up to this, school of graduates and how they're navigating kind of their careers. Um, I think that the one thing I would say, and what I was told, is find it's not a popular one because my career is largely built as a generalist, right? But specialize in something, understand something, be grounded in your expertise, um, and really pursue that. Be obsessed with that at the beginning. Don't be obsessed with the stage. Don't be obsessed with the money at first. Really pursue an expertise. And then, because it's a changing world, understand how you pivot that into different spheres. So if I stayed as a risk manager, maybe my career would still be great. I don't know. But I don't think I would be having this much fun. So, at the beginning, it was really about ground yourself in an expertise which is well sought after. So understand what is being sought after in the job market, the type of skills you need to have, but then really quite quickly pivot into areas that fascinate you, that have your curiosity, because I think that's what fuels your career passion, right? You log 9 to 5 days, and let's be honest, we all in financial service, it's not 9 to 5 job, so you have to have some kind of passion to keep it going. So I would say at the beginning, I heard brilliant advice. Don't be scared to be a little bit bored, at the beginning, because it pays off, that grit and putting in the investment at the beginning. And then that opens up opportunities where you can play and be curious on this playground. So I think that's what would be my advice, is really get grounded at first, and then, be really quite agile in terms of what those opportunities open up for you.
That's awesome. I wanna, kind of group that or maybe lump that a bit with continuous learning, right? And really how to continue to upskill oneself through the career journey. I mean, maybe my question is, what have you done, and how do we encourage, again, youngsters in the industry to really learn, educate themselves, position themselves, and future-proof themselves in a way, right? I mean, we spoke about the loss of 75 million job or 92 million jobs, but the creation of 170, right?
Yes.
Net, that's a positive, right? That's 78 coming through million, which is positive, for I guess, economically speaking. How do we encourage them to really keep going and future-proof and really not be locked in necessarily into the same space where, I guess, as you say, they might get bored at the beginning?
I think you either keep learning or you die. It's that fatalistic, right?
Yeah.
But the good news is, like, I don't know about you guys, but when I started off, learning meant I had to go do a postgrad. So I had to spend like a long time getting additional info, right? But I think the advantage that we have today is all these short programs and the value that you can extract immediately. So you asked me, like, previously I thought, oh, I have to go do my master's to get, to show that I'm continuously learning and I can move up. But now, you can do a short course on whether it's cloud computing or AI and show proficiency in that kind of lane. There I go, using big words. That's a sign. But I really think that's the opportunity, is always be open to see what's on the horizon, and what is being offered in the market, where I can quickly do a course, where I can upskill myself, where I don't become redundant, right? And it doesn't take like a year. It can literally take 2 weeks, and then you get certified. So I think it's that there's a huge opportunity, and it's opened up the space. You'll see a lot of kind of employers even kind of, when people say, oh, I want to go do my MBA, they're like, but why? There's more questions. There's like so much available to you that you can do, in a shorter amount of time. So I think it's been one of the greatest changes that I've seen as it relates to education and even upskilling and learning.
Absolutely. I think education is so important. Obviously, it gives you the grounding and gives you the tools that you need to move forward, but it also facilitates networks and dialogues and conversations, whether it's short courses or your MBA or something that is instituted at some organization. All of it matters. All of it is part of your journey. It's unbelievable how 10 years later you recall something that you did with somebody at some short course, and you reach out to them, and you guys have moved onto different parts, but have been able to can reconnect and build something new together. So I think that's the power of engaging, and that's the power of communicating and putting yourself out there. So my takeaway from you and message to the listeners is essentially to take whatever opportunity comes your way. Don't ever say no, because I think that's what you're trying to say as well, Nomzamo, that different things happen to you. If you had stayed a risk manager, you might have had an amazing career, but it wouldn't have been as challenging, fun, etc. So I think that that's just some of the key takeaways that I'm getting from you and your insight and your amazing career. You've also built a new bank with Old Mutual, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I was there at the early days. I don't know if it's been launched into the market as yet, but you'll see, like, as we were saying, like, if you stay open, your experience, as you gain experience, it opens you up to even more kind of cutting edge. And I would say, actually, like, the premise of that bank was even more exciting as it relates to technology, right? Because here you had a well-established player within financial services, but they were trying to reimagine. The one was a totally new guy on the show trying to disrupt the market. The other one is, how do we disrupt our own market? So it shows you all different players who are kind of thinking about disruption.
Just highlights the opportunity that exists, that within any organization you can tear it apart and transform it to something new. Good, that's amazing. So I think we are running out of time. Any last words, Mzwandile?
Look, I mean, I want to thank Nomzamo actually for really, really an insightful time that she's given us this morning. And I guess having reached tile 25, current leader in the ladder and in the career ladder game. And I mean, look, you've set the bar high for our next guest. And so after the break, we will meet Merlin Raja from ABSA, your former employer. The man bringing lightning speed trading to life. So we will take a short break now, and we'll be back soonest.
Good. Thank you so much, Nomzamo.
Thank you, guys. It's been amazing.
Thank you.
Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. Hello Africa! Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org. Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. The conversation becomes a movement. The idea becomes an economy. This is not another event. It's an activation of Africa's potential. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, where 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, and 20 bootcamp zones collide to create the future of work. From youth innovators to corporate pioneers, from township traders to global brands, every voice counts. 2 days, one goal. Aligning Africa's skills with its opportunities. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026. 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, where skills meet, where Africa works. You're listening to Career Indaba Radio, the voice of Africa's labor market. Real voices, real change, real opportunity. Hello Africa! Want to stay plugged into the world of work? Follow us at Career Indaba on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, and dive deeper at careerindaba.org. Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you.
Welcome back to Career Ladder. We had a really brilliant start with Nomzamo Mazia. And now time, I guess, to change lanes a little bit into the fast-paced world of electronic trading.
Our next guest is someone who's literally built the digital highways that markets trade on. He's head of electronic trading sales at ABSA and has been instrumental in bringing clients closer to the market with millisecond precision. Please welcome Merlin Raja.
Thanks, Ray and Reba. Really excited to be here and excited to climb this ladder.
Confidence right out the gate there, Merlin. That's the trading spirit, right? I mean, before we get into the game, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Merlin Raja. I'm the head of the electronic sales business here in global markets at ABSA. Reba sits opposite me, so I see him all the time. Before that, I was with the Johannesburg Stock Exchange for 10 years. And yeah, that's where Soraya and I know each other from. And I think my career has really started with Alexander Forbes, being involved in managing a portfolio of clients for 2 years. I was a fund manager there and fund administrator there. And then from there, I went to Discovery in the risk team. So it was group risk. I was managing a portfolio of clients there. And the team heard about my background in IT. And that was my segue into IT in Discovery. And I joined the Johannesburg Stock Exchange in 2012. just when they were going to go live with the new trading system. And, that's where my career really blossomed, learned the fundamentals of trading, the systems, the processes. I had really great opportunities and a fantastic time at the exchange. And then I wanted to try my hand at the sell side. And I've been with ABSA for 5.5 years and loving it.
Wow, you found your niche, Merlin. I think that knowing you personally, what shines through for me when I look at you is how you just take everything in your stride. You're extremely successful, but you have a lot of fun doing what you love. And I think for our listeners, if we can convey that, if that's what I can convey about you, I think that's the important thing. Find something, you'll be good at what you love, and the passion for it will shine through. Do you agree with me?
You broke up in the end, but I wanted you to keep going on because it was really nice hearing people say nice stuff about me there. But I missed the last part. What was that? Did you want me to tell you about my journey so far? Or what
No,
is
I
it?
was just maybe if you can just convey to the listeners about your journey and how important it is to actually love what you do. I think some of us
Yeah,
follow career paths that we sort of told to get into, and there isn't a lot of passion behind it. But
yeah,
we see a lot of success coming from people who have that passion, have that spark in what they do.
yeah. Absolutely. So when I was thinking of what to study, right, and I was in Durban, and I got really bad advice from my father. I told him, Dad, what should I study? Like, really, what should I study? And he went, what are your friends studying? I said, they're studying IT. He said, I think you should go do that. At least you'd have company. Needless to say, my friends dropped out in the first year, right? And
Oh
then
no.
there I was studying IT, right? And later on in life, I did BCom, where I found my passion with finance, etc. But it's a blend of IT and commerce. But yes, it's very important to love what you do. And I knew from the onset I wanted to get involved in something in finance, not in accounting. Trading was really what seemed exciting. And I still wanted to be technical enough because I studied IT. I like systems, and this kind of brought it together. I wasn't hunting for this role. I wasn't like, I didn't know how it was going to come, but I knew I needed to get there somehow. But I wanted to be analytic. I also wanted to travel the world looking for clients. And I was like, would you ever get a job like that? And so I ended up making this role. Like, you end up being technical, you are support, but then it allows you to speak to clients, and then you show your progress from there. Actually, I think this is what clients want and need. And they, everybody said, why don't you go and see them? And then, so you build it yourself. You don't have to stay in a box. If you're in a position in a company, you really need to give out ideas, to show them the initiative. So that's been my journey, always showing where we could help clients, and it's always been client centric and focusing on that part more than the technical parts of, yes, I understand how the trading system work, yes, I understand how APIs integrate, yes, I understand the technicalities of structuring a deal, but it's more about just focusing on what do your clients need, what do your clients want, and how do you get them a solution that can fit their needs and for purpose.
Wow, that's an incredible journey so far. And I think it's so important to what you touched on, carving out what you want for yourself. You're living a role, as you said, that didn't exist before. Um, the world
Yeah.
was your oyster, and you motivated for it, and you could deliver value. So that's all really important traits that I think our listeners need to be aware of in this new digital world. Okay, so
Yeah.
Merlin, tell us more about electronic trading. We know it's all about speed, but in markets, speed without strategy can be chaos. How do you balance innovations in execution technology with maintaining market integrity and client trust?
Yeah, so I mean, you touched on some really good points there. Yes, speed. I mean, that's been how I've made my career. It's really about bringing in high frequency trading firms who really rely on platforms that are built for speed. But speed has been only one element in this. You could deliver a platform that's really fast, but if it's not robust and resilient, your clients are not going to be your clients for long if they're going to be going down every day or every hour or having issues with you. So when we build platforms, we build it with the intention of it being the fastest, but also with the intention of how do we create resiliency and redundancy. Similarly to how the JC co-location data center was built, especially around a time where electricity was an issue. You have battery backup, you have A and B feeds, you have two parts of power coming into the data center, you have a generator that can run continuously if it fit. So when we build our systems at ABSA as well, we think about these things. Is there an A path? Is there a B path? Is there no single point of failure should something go wrong? How do you have a B, and a DR and a backup? That's how we build systems and solutions that are lasting for a long time, right? It's not just for now. It's something it's a firm foundation and can be built on. So that's the core of it. In electronic trading, what am I doing? If you really think about traditional trading, there was this floor where everybody used to use hand signals to buy and sell, right? It looks cool. Wolf of Wall Street, it comes to mind, when you see the NYSE floor, everybody gets excited. Does that exist in South Africa? No, right? That ended quite a long time ago, and the machines took over, right? And this is, it started from being able to send an order to the exchange to then building out bespoke algos rather than Soraya and Reba entering 10 orders every 5 minutes manually. You could put it into a system that will generate this automatically. So that's one part of electronic trading. It's providing algos to our clients. It's about building road and pathways to our clients and to exchanges like the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, but we also trade in various exchanges around the world. And then now we're looking at how do we connect the rest of Africa where we have presence together, right, to create this ecosystem. So what we built out very recently was the ability to route orders from the desk onto the Nairobi Stock Exchange. And I believe we're one of the first, to offer this institutional grade technology. And that's just the beginning. Like, how do you do this across Africa? And then how do we bring, the world to Africa to trade seamlessly and for Africa to trade outwards really seamlessly? And that's electronic trading, like in a nutshell.
Merlin, that's a strong start. Besides your first name, I think it's clear why some people may call you the wizard, right? We move firmly to tile 5 at this stage, trading edge activated. You touched on co-location, right? And it is a big deal in trading, right? It's the invisible infrastructure behind fair, fast markets. Now, the question is, what did it take to bring that capability to life? And what does it mean for African capital markets?
Yeah, so that's some really good questions there. I was still in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange customer support around that time. And Soraya was in trading services, and she was like my boss. She used to come down with stuff that they're implementing, and we needed to make it work. And I remember 2012 was when the new technology was delivered, which was Millennium, and 2014 is when co-location was delivered. And why did this occur, right? If you really think about, firstly, what is co-location? You probably have listeners going, what is that, right? It's a data center. It's a data center that was built right next to the trading system of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And, the question then would be, why do you need something like that? And if you think about speed, right, and you touched on this earlier, Soraya, speed is an important part of trading, is if I said to someone, the first person to touch me on the shoulder gets this pen, right? That is information I've just put out there. Now, unfortunately, if I said this loud enough, the person in the room here would beat both you, Soraya, and Reba, right? And you guys know this because you're sitting in a building further away from me. And so trading is like this. So when it first went electronic, the firms that had offices closest to the exchange their systems can receive information faster than a firm that was in Rosebank. And the firm in Rosebank used to receive the information faster than the firm in Cape Town. And the firm in Cape Town used to receive it faster than a firm in London, right? And so the international community came around and said, well, you want us to trade your market more, but it's unfair. And our question was, why it's unfair? You can take a building, space next to the exchange. And they went, we're not going to take an entire building next to the exchange and put people there. We want to just put our systems in a place that's equal and fair to everybody in the market. And that's how co-location was born. It was now, a firm in London could take space in the JC co-location data center. A firm in Australia could do that. A firm in Cape Town could do it. And every cable length is exactly the same in every rack in the JC co-location data center to the trading system, thereby making it fair, right? And so that's how co-location was born. It was really on the premise to make it fair and efficient for international participants and South African participants to trade on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Along with the resiliency and redundancy, that we spoke about earlier. So that's really co-location, and that's where you find, high frequency trading firms, quant firms, all putting their infrastructure, because it's the fastest mechanism and the most optimal way to trade in a market.
That's
Does that cover
brilliant.
it? I don't know if it covered it. Yeah.
No, I think it's
Okay.
brilliant. I think what the message that you're trying to convey to our listeners is that it's not just about climbing the ladder, it's about building one yourself. So you're now on Tile 10, infrastructure innovator. And thank you for sharing your
Couldn't wait to
experience.
be on Tile 10. So exciting.
As electronic trading gets smarter, automation handles more of the workflow. How do traders and sales teams stay relevant in an increasingly AI-assisted market?
So how do traders? Yeah. So firstly, traders here have been used to doing things in a certain way forever, right? And to give them a new system, just to change them from one system to another is mission, right? Nobody likes change, especially if you've been doing things for a long time. So what we've really been doing here is educating people on how these tools can help them, and then taking them through this in bite-sized chunks. So, how do you use Copilot in your day, for example, right? If you have it, it takes away the whole admin of, and I used to do it for our meetings at the JSC. I remember this when we used to have forums. Is Merlin, okay, would you write the minutes? And I'll go and listen to a recording and I'll type it up afterwards. That's gone, right? So that helps, like me on the electronic sales piece, when I'm speaking to clients and pitching for business, I don't have to write this lengthy piece afterwards. I've got Copilot, types it up, I review it, I send it. Gives me more time to sell to new clients, pitch new ideas, talk about technology. Similar for traders, right? We in the space of, we've got so much of information right now. How do we use this, to create some alpha, to generate more content for clients, to give them insights? So one is really about cleansing the data, because you have quite a lot of data. And, if you don't really have good structured data and accurate data, you could actually lead to, creating things that are wrong. So we spent a long time really making sure that the data is cleansed and it's in a structured format that we could use for creating further analytics and insights. But yes, on the trading side, there's lots of things you could do. You could pull out analytics of what's happening on a stock. What are analysts saying? How do you distribute it to clients? How do you integrate news that has just come out with predictions of where the stock is going to go up or down? Is the news sentiment positive or negative? Because that gives you indication immediately of what you should be doing, especially if you're in risky positions. I mean, there's countless of other ways we use it, but it's becoming increasingly more common right now to have something that have tools to assist traders. You don't just rely on conversations, and conversations are great, but you rely on facts and historical data to predict how you should be trading. And we use this quite a lot in how we build our algorithms, right? So when we build an algorithm around VWAP or TWAP or participate, and it's trading live in the market, hundreds of millions of rands, this data needs to be accurate. So we backtest it over and over, introduce new data points to make sure it's, always keeping up to date. So, you'll continuously see this. I have no doubts, AI assisted systems, tools, etc., Gen AI is going to be a big thing. And I have no doubt that, you're going to see more tech people becoming front office. It's just an evolution. Can you code? Can you code on the desk? Can you create your own analytics? Can you amend stuff? So, for those that are in IT, feel like they separate from business, I believe people in IT will slowly start taking over. That's my opinion.
Look, Merlin, I didn't think Nomzamo would have such stiff competition, immediately. I mean,
Me
you're
too.
at tile 15. You're excited about tile 10. We're on 15 now. And you spoke to this, right? Human plus machine equals alpha, right? And that's really important. Let's look ahead for a moment, though, right? So with new entrants like fintechs and global investors eyeing African markets, what innovations do you think will redefine how people access and trade in our markets?
So I think in South Africa, we're pretty far advanced, right? So if you're talking in context of the whole of Africa, especially in trading, there's a lot of building blocks you need to have as a marketplace before lots of investors come to you. Do you have a robust trading system? Something that's standardized, like fixed integration or binary protocols? Do you have paperless settlement? So a lot of countries or exchanges still rely on paper-based settlement. Is there script, borrow and lend? There's other things. If I'm just talking about the context of the equity market, for example, right? And so those are the journeys that these exchanges in Africa have to go through, apart from how do you attract listings? Because, you can have the best tech, but if you don't have companies that people believe in or want to trade in, how do you do that? So, that there's a lot for them to overcome. But if I bring it home for South Africa for now, API integration, how easy do we make it for clients, corporate clients, institutional clients to integrate into us to trade? We don't go out there and just go, here's a front end, right, for you to trade the world. A lot of these clients want to use their own front ends. They've built their own platforms, or they like a platform that they found, around the world. So we end up with multiple vendors or multiple systems that need to connect to us, and that's where I come in and my team comes in. Around the integration of these clients into our platforms to give them a seamless experience when trading in markets. So API integration is a big piece of how this ecosystem functions, and that's one of it. I believe we still need to see this journey in retail access to the market. Right? There's a few platforms that are here. It's provided by banks. You have a few independent providers. When you go into other international markets where you see the retail market having boomed, there's multiple platforms you can use. Really sophisticated, great insights. And I'll give you I went to India earlier this year to see some of our clients. And when I jumped in, the taxi driver immediately he said, what do you do? What are you doing here? You're not from India, because he heard my accent. And I said, no, I'm in, trading. And he said, oh, this is my portfolio. And the Uber driver, this is my portfolio. I'm in industrials. I'm in this sector. And I'm like, what's going on here? This is amazing. And so they have really created, like, from grassroots level, understanding about trading, financial awareness. How do you invest? How do you create wealth? And the platforms are the access point, but those platforms that have actually invested back in going to schools, going to universities, partnering with exchanges, with brokers to talk about wealth creation. And I think, if we're going to talk about APIs and integration, we also need to talk about how do we create that in South Africa, that awareness. I only found out about investing later on in my life. And I wish I knew this at 18, how easy it is to put 200 Rand away or 300 Rand away. So, so from my side, let me just end there is, API integration is key. Digital platforms is going to be a big thing. Using tools, massive. But as a community, more than just all these cool stuff we do is how do we give back to, the wider community and understanding what we're doing and how to save.
Thank you for sharing, Merlin. That's extremely insightful. Definitely a ladder moment. We're going to put you onto tile 20, market access visionary. And I think what you shared with us also speaks to what's really needed in this country to transform our retail sector, get more people trading in and educated about investing and wealth creation. So,
Yeah.
final question, and this one's for the listeners who might just be starting out. What's the one piece of advice you'd give someone who wants to build a career in digital innovation or trading technology?
Monsieur, what's the one piece of advice I want to give to people
What's
that?
the one piece of advice you want to give someone who wants to build a career in digital innovation or trading technology?
Um, yeah, so first, my wife's father said, follow, study IT. So if digital innovation is somewhere in your space, you're gonna have to learn the fundamentals of IT systems, processes. I definitely see the need for Python on the desk. So if you're thinking about, digital, if you're thinking about big data, if you're thinking about analytics, Python is key for us when we're looking for new talent. So, when you're studying, or if you can do a course on it yourselves, there's lots of free courses on Python, even on YouTube. So I'd recommend, if a person's keen, start there, learn about that. There's also lots of courses about financial markets. And what impresses me when we interview youngsters that come through on the grad program is when we ask them about trading, etc., and they tell us, "Oh, we know about collocation, we know about systems, we know about processes." And I go, "How do you know about this?" And we went onto the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, we read volume 00, we know, we watch some YouTube videos. So I really, really like to encourage that. Just always learning, always getting stuck in. No task is too small. And like I mentioned, I started off in customer support. If you can understand the foundation and the back end of systems, you'd understand the business.
Merlin, solid wisdom right there. Guess what? You've reached tile 25, digital market trailblazer. Congratulations.
Is that the pinnacle?
It is the pinnacle. You've reached the top. Yes.
Thank you, Reba.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your time this morning. Merlin, listen, this really was very insightful, and I think you've given some good guidance to young people also trying to enter the kind of the digital trading space and what they would need to empower themselves with, right? And yeah, look, up next we're gonna have a guy that's bringing data to life. Literally, joining us after the break. He's the head of data and research at Navigata Securities. Merlin, you have also probably encountered this man. He's a data scientist who makes numbers tell stories. That will be after this short break that we will have just now. Thanks, Merlin.
Thanks, Reba. Thanks, Soraya. Cheers.
Awesome.
Future-proofing skills for economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th to 16th of May 2026 is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap, and future-proof our workforce. The conversation becomes a movement. The idea becomes an economy. This is not another event. It's an activation of Africa's potential. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, where 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, and 20 bootcamp zones collide to create the future of work. From youth innovators to corporate pioneers, from township traders to global brands, every voice counts. 2 days, one goal. Aligning Africa's skills with its opportunities. Career Indaba, Expo and Bootcamp 2026. 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, where skills meet, where Africa works.
Okay.
Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you.
All right. Welcome back to Career Ladder. We have raced through trading floors and innovation labs. Now it's time to meet the person who decodes the market's DNA. Our next guest is the man I call the double doctor, Qobolwake Dube, head of data and research at Navigara Securities. He's a data scientist, a quantitative analyst, someone who knows that behind every market move is a story hidden in the numbers. Welcome, Qobolwake.
Morning, Reba. Thanks for having me here.
Awesome. Qobolwake, look, I did call you the double doctor, and maybe you might give context to the listeners about that. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, that's always an interesting story to tell because at the end of it, I always get, why did I even think about doing that? But long story short, I've been in the industry for about 4 of them. I'm currently the head of data and research at Navigar Securities. Prior to that, I was at the JSE as a senior market structure specialist, where pretty much dealt with the equity and equity derivatives, asset classes, anything and everything to do with data in that space. I pretty much became the go-to guy. And before that, I was what I like to call a professional student, in that uh, I wasn't part of growing up, so spent quite a bit of time in school, which ultimately led to having 2 PhDs, finance, the other applied finance, and obviously along there were a bunch of other degrees that I collected, but they're not really relevant these days because they don't matter as much as
Too much fun. I think many would love to be professional students, right? But look, that's pretty amazing. I'm sure this morning you have been tuned in to the career ladder and really saw our 2 previous guests and how seriously they played the game. So you do have some stiff competition here.
Yeah. Speaking of your previous guest, I'd like to say, he said I'm a nice guy. I mean, he's being generous. I'm okay, if we're being honest.
I will attest to that as well. So you outvoted Q.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess so.
Okay, well, let's get ready to climb the career ladder. Are you ready to play?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's go for it.
Okay, first question. Data is everywhere, but insights are rare. How do you turn raw financial data into something meaningful for decision makers?
So this was always an interesting question, or the conversation always leads down an interesting path, right? Because with this, that's one of those situations where you have to begin, right? Because you need to know the question. The data that you use depends on the question that you're trying to answer, right? Because that's the unfortunate thing about data, and given the complexity around understanding statistics and all of that, you can always fudge the numbers a bit, right, to tell whatever story you want to tell, right? So it's always helpful to begin with the end in mind, know what story you're trying to tell, and then that then frames the lens with which you're looking at the data, right? And then in my experience, the one thing that helps quite a bit with trying to make sense of the data, right, is visualization. People are visual people, right? So that will always help at the end of the day, being able to see visually what the data looks like.
Sure, that's I guess what we might call clarity from complexity. I mean, we start now going to Tile 5. Let's call you an insight architect. Q, as also you might be affectionately known, quant models are powerful, but markets are still driven by human behavior. Let's be fair, right? How do you strike a balance between mathematics and intuition?
So that one again is always right, because it's not, to your point, much driven by human intuition, right? Which is the reason why you'll see that many desks, right, will be split up into the high touch and low touch sort of setup, right, to cater for those very different scenarios. But ultimately, the balance between the two, or which path you go in terms of which to use, right, depends on what you're trying to achieve. Because on the one hand, right, there's markets are fast, right? Data is available to exchange at the nanosecond time step level. It is very much impossible to expect a human to be able to see that and interpret what's going on, right? So from that perspective, it will always be essential and necessary to have the electronic side of things and the algorithm side make sense of the data as it comes through at that high frequency level, and make decisions that exist within a defined space of parameters, right? But on the other hand, right, algorithms at the end of the day are just algorithms. They only execute what the writer of the algorithm defined it to do, right? There's the bigger picture side of things, which is not seen by algorithms, right? There's the connecting that's seen by the algorithms. Financial decisions nowadays are not driven just by the financial data. There's what's called the alternative data, right? With additional context over and above the hard. So that's where the intuition comes into play, right? We often have those traders who can see the bigger picture based on that bigger picture. So it's a delicate balance, but ultimately depends on what it is you're trying to achieve in the market.
Wow, that's a lot of insight. You've just balanced art and science. We're definitely moving you up to Tal 10, the quant whisperer. Okay, so next question. In financial institutions, it's not just about technology, it's about culture too. How do you get teams to embrace data-driven decision making?
This is another proof in the pudding. You have to show the evidence to people in order for them to get buy-in. It's not enough to just talk about it theoretically, to say, hey, we should use data because sites whatnot. If you're able to in a ways get some sort of actionable insights from the and show how that impacts the team in a material way, right? And how that can ultimately lead to better decision making and outcomes for the business, right? The buy-in simply becomes easy. It's just you have to make the data points relatable beyond just seeing numbers on the screen or statistics or explaining that oh no, then this means that. It has to be relatable to the team, get that buy-in, because then it gives individuals a data point with which they can work with to say, oh, okay, actually the case, maybe I should use this data to gain. And it's just about relatability at the end of the day, as with anything. If you're trying to make a sale, right, you have to be relatable to the person that you're trying to make the sale to. Same thing with data. You're trying to get that buy-in to people to get more data-driven decisions. there has to be that hard evidence that relates to, okay, practically, if I use this, what does this mean for me?
Tell you what, you've unlocked TAL 15 data evangelist. I mean, I like
Wow,
that response really.
it's a big
And
word.
I mean, really, it speaks to the fact that culture change is no small feat, right? And really, that's I think what you've pointed to there. Look, Q, AI is everywhere, right? From chatbots to predictive trading. Where do you see AI having the biggest impact on the future of financial markets?
So, and right, the one thing that I always like pointing out to previous my answer, because I do get asked this quite a lot, right? In we are in AI is not because if you just look at electronic trading and algorithmic trading, right? That is AI, that is machine learning. That has been going on since the dot-com bubble, right? It's not new. What's just new in that regard is the technology is getting better, the computing power is getting even bigger, right? You're able to interact with that data at a much higher frequency, right? What's really driving the AI bubble now, right, is the generative AI aspect of things, right? Specifically the large language models, right? In that regard, right, that's fundamentally different to, well, the use case for that is fundamentally different to how traditionally AI and machine learning has been applied in the financial services industry. I'm speaking from an electronic trading perspective, right? So with that in mind, right, on the one side, on the electronic trading side of things, it's very difficult to get a sense this is going because it's always a question of can the computing power it's much faster? Can we with them much faster than we already are? Because right now the speed is insane with which participants are interacting with the market, right? Now on the generative AI side of things, right? All that really is, well, from an LLM perspective, right? LLMs don't understand what it is you ask it or what it's generating. Simply putting down, let's say you a GPT or whatever, right? You ask it a question, right? The response that you get is a response not based off of your question, but it's the most probable sequence words that come together given the context of the asked. So there's absolutely no understanding. So with that in mind, right, it's the prudence thing is often to be very cautious about application of generative AI in of the industry. There is a space for it, absolutely, right? But in terms of ultimately making decisions that will have financial impact, it will be we need to tread very carefully on that aspect of things. Generative AI is very much useful as a tool in assisting the decision-making process, right? But to say that it is the tool itself that will be used to make financial decisions, because there are so many pitfalls that are inherently associated with generative AI in our lifetimes will never be they'll never be dealt with. So it's a long road ahead. So where I believe the future lies for AI in this space is the use of generative AI as a tool in the decision-making process, right? And not necessarily ultimately as a tool that will be making the decisions in this space.
Wow, that's so interesting. You've definitely taken us into the future. And I learned a few acronyms from you as well. We're putting you on TAL 20, so you're the AI Pathfinder. Moving on to the next question for our listeners who love numbers, what is the one skill or mindset that they should focus on if they want to build a career like yours?
So it's I wouldn't say there's one skill, right? But it's essentially it's the intersection of multiple things that have to go into consideration, right? But probably at the top of that list is to remain teachable, right? Because this is an ever-evolving space. There's new technologies coming. You need to be adaptable in that environment, right? Or that openness. At the same time, it's not necessarily about the new things, right? But also remaining teachable and understanding that the fossils in the industry, right? They do have some valuable information, informs how the future of the industry should look like, right? So it's remaining teachable both from a forward-looking perspective and a backward-looking perspective, right? Because that perspective is important for defining what the future of the industry looks like. So that's the one thing. Remain teachers, open to learning new, and don't be afraid to fail, right? Because technologies are new. Sometimes you right, sometimes you won't, and that's fine. It's just the thing that we're looking for is progress, right? Whether it's 100 meters of progress is progress, and that's more than reason enough to be heading in the direction that you're heading, right? And the last thing, which is more for a personal thing for me, is like, don't let anyone tell you that it can't be done, because those are oftentimes the things that I find myself doing. The easiest way to get me to do something is to tell me it can't be done, and then that just drives that interest in what I do, and yeah, and
Look, Q, you've definitely cracked the winning formula here, right? Bringing
mm,
sexy back to academics, and
yeah,
I think offering young people out there that insight that it can be very good, very insightful, and really giving a contribution to the financial markets as actively and as importantly as those much more active in the markets as than you may be. So we'll move you to
mm.
TAL 25. I mean, we still don't appreciate that fossil comment, but we'll move you to TAL 25,
No,
data
no, I
champion.
wasn't referring to
Um,
you, Riva. We're age mates. We're peers. We're peers.
it's
I don't know what that means.
it's only because I
You're
got my hair cut
young or I'm
recently.
old, but
But congratulations, Q, and really, I mean, very insightful, very informative, and as I say, I think really giving a different aspect to how young people can really position themselves for their futures.
Q, thank you so much for sharing with us. I think Merlin also gave us a little bit of personal insight into how he started out. So,
Mm.
if you're willing to share, can you sort of let the listeners know a little bit about how you got into this career? Did you always know you wanted to be a data scientist and work with numbers, or did it were you led through mentorship, or just give us some insight about the opportunities that presented themselves to you
Yeah.
and how you grabbed it with both hands?
So it's this one again. It's another one of those interesting things. I always refer to a series of fortunate events that landed me up until this point, right? Because actually, so in my way or the path leading up to being a professional student, right? After I finished my honors, right? I did. I was like I'd like to go into the working world. Let me prepare for that. Let me do some professional qualifications, right? So at that point, I remember to do CFS, right? Um, Controversial. It was a breeze, right? I was like, no,
That's supposed to
I
be the
need it
hard
bigger
one.
than this. No, it was a breeze. I was like, no, I need a difficult challenge than this. That's how I ended up doing my master's, right? And then throughout my I was like, okay, so I'm the sort of person I don't how do I really settle, right? If I say I want that thing only, I don't believe in consolation prizes for myself. So during my master's that I wanted, I didn't get it. Then I was like, oh, okay, well, that means I'm staying late. And then that's how I ultimately came to the decision of staying my PhD, right? And it was at that moment, right? And then I guess fortunately for me, I mean, as I'm sure the both of you will attest to this, I'm an affable guy. People like me, right? That somewhat
Absolutely.
landed me in the right conversation, people, and then this opportunity came along, right? Where my PhD, well, this is how I ultimately ended up doing the two PhDs, where I was funded by this research institute from Australia that gave me this opportunity, right? And so throughout this whole time, right, I had always been what's the word I want to use? Mathematically inclined, right? I was always the numbers guy, right? Doing the quant stuff. Uh, yeah, so maths was my thing, right? So that's how I landed up down this path, right? But then it was that opportunity to go to Australia that ultimately landed me in this niche space that I find myself in, right? Because what that research institute did was consulting work for various exchanges, financial institutions globally, right? Which gave me to the exposure of gave me exposure to the environment of high frequency trading, electronic trading, and all of that. And that's how I ultimately landed up in that space, right? And that's how the JSC evolved. So there was some research work I was doing for the JSC. I got there, liked me, and then great relationship. And then I finished my PhD, the JSC like, hey, do you want a job? Yeah, I like you guys. Cool. And that's how I landed at the JSE, right? And then since then, it's just that diving deeper into this world, right? My peers, the likes of Reba and the other fossils at the JS, excluding Reba, who's not a fossil, and and essentially just gaining that knowledge along it. And I think it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge that something that aside from my efforts, right, and the knowledge that I have and the skills, right, a big part that got me to this point was the people, right, the buy-in from the people seeing me like, oh yeah, I think he'd be suitable for this, oh he's good for that. So that helped in getting me to this point. So it's just like I said, a series of fortunate events, the right sort of interest that I have for myself and things that I do and learn from. So everything just happened to
Line up.
happen at the same time. Yeah, everything just lined up perfectly. I say to people, right, I'm the jack of all trades and the master of a very few, which I feel like it was the perfect sort of situation to land myself in because I found myself in positions. Well, I often say call a scientist or quant analyst is quite reductive in terms of the things that I've had to do to get myself to this point, right? Because there's even time where I worked for a solar star data scientist. I was found myself in that space, knowing anything and everything about electronics and this and that, right? So it's just, yeah, a series of fortunate events that have landed me to this point.
How amazing. Q, you've
Yeah.
got a PhD or double PhD already, and you're
I mean,
definitely not
if
a
you insist
fossil.
on counting, yeah.
Have you closed the books, or what are you busy with at the moment?
Um, well, on it's a bit of a contentious one, but I'm still open to opening the books again. But in this instance, it'll be something very different, right? Because I mean, granted, I fully acknowledge that I don't know everything there is to know in my space, but it would be nice to sort of go off the beaten track, do something different, whether it's something in mechanical engineering or I end up doing something in the humanities like history or philosophy. That's something that I'm honestly open to, just something out of the ordinary and not necessarily uh, similar to the space that I'm finding myself in right now.
You know, Q, for me, a lot of people don't know that you were a really, really good rugby player, right? I think people tend to get boxed. People tend to get boxed, and kids, in fact, a lot box themselves
Yeah.
into I want to be a sportsman or I want to be an
Mm.
academic. I really appreciate the fact that you show that, both can work at the same time, and in fact, one then equips themselves quite well in ensuring that you get the academics right whilst still pushing yourself on the sporting front. I mean, you've kind of opted to be known as the mathematics geek and not the jock, right? I mean, at which point did it seem more profitable to position in one way, not the other?
Well, so I mean, really, really good is this. Yeah, I almost had a Springbok career, but so did every other person who who played rugby in high school and university, right? But it was
Yeah.
for me the tipping point. I think I must have been in the third or fourth of varsity. I found myself on the rugby field one day. I was like, yo, my knees. I've got to find an alternative plan, right? And then that's when I just focused more into the academic side of things. But it's it's very important to have that sort of multifaceted approach to life. So I'll let you know something that most people don't actually know. I'm actually a self-taught musician, right? I play 4 different instruments. And this came about because during my PhD, I procrastinate a lot. So I thought I'd find a way to procrastinate productively for myself how to read and play music where we are. So maybe we're in music after financial services, who knows?
Oh my goodness. Hopefully, after you've made all your millions and you're sitting on a yacht somewhere, you can play your instruments
Fingers
thereafter.
crossed, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Well, thank you, Q, for showing us that data is more than numbers, that you're a multifaceted and multidimensional human being as well. And I think you're right. People box things a lot. And especially for kids starting out, you're looking at careers, you're trying to get interested, figure out how to match your skills with a career path. There's a unique way for you to actually carve it, and decide
Exactly.
how you want to cultivate that career as well. Any last words that you'd like to share with our listeners before we move on to a little break before our next guest?
I'll just share just a couple of words that were ultimately, well, one of the catalysts to out of doing the PhDs and whatnot. One day I was having a conversation with a friend, right? And then I told him about this idea, like, listen, I want to register for 2 PhDs at the same time, whatnot. He asked me if I was mad, right? So I was like, oh, well, I don't know. It seems challenging enough. I should do it. And then the words he left me with was like, in life you have either one of 2 choices, right? Either you do the most or you stand by and watch other people do. The choice is yours.
Tell you what, that is quotable, right? Thank you so much, Kobalwake. Next up after the break, we're diving into global markets innovation with Mohammed Ismail. Q, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you,
having me,
Q.
guys.
Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you. The conversation becomes a movement. The idea becomes an economy. This is not another event. It's an activation of Africa's potential. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, where 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, and 20 bootcamp zones collide to create the future of work. From youth innovators to corporate pioneers, from township traders to global brands, every voice counts. 2 days, one goal. Aligning Africa's skills with its opportunities. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026. 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, where skills meet, where Africa works. conversation becomes a movement. The idea becomes an economy. This is not another event. It's an activation of Africa's potential. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, where 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, and 20 bootcamp zones collide to create the future of work. From youth innovators to corporate pioneers, from township traders to global brands, every voice counts. 2 days, one goal. Aligning Africa's skills with its opportunities. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026. 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, where skills meet, where Africa works. The conversation becomes a movement. The idea becomes an economy. This is not another event. It's an activation of Africa's potential. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, where 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, and 20 bootcamp zones collide to create the future of work. From youth innovators to corporate pioneers, from township traders to global brands, every voice counts. 2 days, one goal. Aligning Africa's skills with its opportunities. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026. 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, where skills meet, where Africa works.
Good.
The conversation becomes a movement. The idea becomes an economy. This is not another event. It's an activation of Africa's potential. The Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026, where 5,000 delegates, 100 exhibitors, and 20 bootcamp zones collide to create the future of work. From youth innovators to corporate pioneers, from township traders to global brands, every voice counts. 2 days, one goal. Aligning Africa's skills with its opportunities. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp 2026. 15th to 16th May, Sandton Convention Center, where skills meet, where Africa works.
Welcome back to Korea Indaba's radio show, Korea Talk. I've got with me Mzwandile Reba, and we are co-hosting a show called Career Ladder. We've had 3 fabulous guests, and we're just waiting for our next guest to join us. I believe he's just come online. But Mzwandile, what a fascinating morning. I feel I've been taken from one end of the spectrum to the next through all with digital innovators, and I've been learning so much, so I hope our listeners are as well. Any reflections for you at this point?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. I think, it's been a really good morning. And I think, the biggest takeout for me so far, to be honest, is really our guests reflecting on their careers, the journeys they took to get to where they are. And really, of course, I mean, they've pointed to how technology and data play a really critical and important role in their lives. We went from, people who are really pushing in their careers and really, innovating in financial markets, to Kobolwake, who I guess was the most recent guest, really glamorizing the world of academics and how one can, apply that in the financial markets world. So really also looking forward to our next guest.
Amazing. So, our next guest has built a career on understanding how assets, liquidity, and innovation come together to move markets. He's a global markets innovator at Standard Bank. Please welcome Mohammed Ismail. Mohammed, can you hear us? Are you online? Hi, Mohammed.
The wonders of technology.
Don't say it. Let's just give him a few minutes to reconnect. In the meanwhile, we were saying that we've had such a fascinating journey this morning with our three guests thus far. Although we've been playing a game and they've been really competitive, it's also been extremely insightful to learn from them. I think if I was a young person looking out at what to study, what careers I should peg my hopes and dreams on, this would definitely, the three people that we had this morning would definitely come to mind as influencers, mentors, people that I could reach out to. I think the important thing that we've also learned is that technology has been used in all of their career paths, but it hasn't been the be all and end all. So the human aspect is very much needed and very much real, and it's what we need today as well. What are your thoughts, Mzwandile? Anything you want to share?
No, absolutely. And to that point, the point was brought up around learning from people who have, blazed the trail, right? And really, people that have been there for many, many years. You can learn many skills, but you can't learn experience. And valuable experience can never be discarded, even in this ever-changing world of technology, and really where innovation plays the biggest part in the advancements of many industries. So, in my view, I think marrying the two has been kind of shown to be extremely important and of extreme value.
Absolutely. And I think people have a lot of stress that technology is going to take over. There's not going to be any jobs. But interesting stat that we got from Namzamo, who had recently read some reports from the World Bank about the number of jobs that will be created because of technology. I think that's an important aspect as well. That that although certain things might fall away, there's a lot more new jobs and opportunities that will be available. I mean, we've seen that with Merlin, who carved his own career path. His job didn't exist, in his own words, before him, and he found something. He married the things that he was interested in, speaking to clients, delivering technology solutions, and traveling the world. And he created a career out of it. I think similarly with Q, we saw that academics don't really have to be confined behind books. He's adding a lot of value to in his previous role at the exchange, and in his current role in asset management as well.
Hi.
I believe, yeah. Okay. Hi, Mohammed. I believe we
Hi,
have.
can you guys hear me now?
Yes. Thank you for
Yes, we
joining
can.
us.
Thanks, Surya and MC. Thanks. I'm really excited to climb the ladder. Although in markets, the only ladder I see is usually a price ladder, eh?
We see what you did there. We see what you did there, Mo. Yeah, no, for sure. Welcome to the show, and I guess welcome to the game, right? I mean, I'm gonna warn you, Mo. We've had three really competitive players, so I mean, you're gonna have to really put your best foot forward here to see if you can also scale to the very top. I mean, you've got a three-way tie.
Okay,
So,
no,
yeah,
I'm all for it, eh?
there you go. Thank you so much. So Mo, please, take some time to maybe tell us about yourself, your career, and what you're all about.
Okay, thanks, MZ. So I would like to maybe start with I came into global markets through the side door. I'm Mohammed Ismail. I work in global markets at Standard Bank South Africa, and my world sits where prime services, Delta One, and collateral all meet the technology that actually makes trading possible from a day to day, right? I grew up in Johannesburg. I did my matric at Greenside High. I've always had an engineering mindset. From very small, I always wondered how things work, how to make it better, and went on to study a dual degree. So that's one of the degrees that was offered at the time at University of Johannesburg, where I did a B Engineering, Electrical and Electronic Engineering degree, at the same time also doing a BSc Information Technology degree. So I completed 2 degrees at the same time. Then I started working, and during my first few years in my working career, I was doing my master's part-time. So I have like a very, like quite a long engineering study period that I went through. Career-wise, I didn't start on the trading floor though. I first started as a junior engineer working for a company in Sandton, very much in heavy current and power systems. Are you there?
Yes, we're here.
Yeah,
Oh,
still
sorry,
listening.
something closed on my side. Okay, cool. Sorry. So I was working in power systems, and from there I took a step. I moved I applied for the graduate program at ABSA Capital, and managed to get in. It was quite a rigorous process, but coming from a very technical engineering background into a financial, interview and selection pool, it was very intimidating as well, with the different types of personalities that studied finance, and you all competing for an opportunity to work within the bank, right? So when I did start at ABSA, I worked in technology, worked in the FX space. I originally worked on building the actual tools for the traders. Firstly at ABSA Capital, I was part of global markets technology. So we were the technology team that was helping, that built all the trading systems for the foreign exchange desk. So it was part of the systems was the ability to price, execute, and manage risk. My stay there was about 2 or 3 years. Then I moved across to Standard Bank, where my role got broader, right? So I worked again similar to ABSA within FX. Then I moved across into equities. I was then part of the build out of the prime services and Delta One capability, and eventually I was given the opportunity to work on the actual prime desk on the floor, not just in the engine room. One of the things I'm most proud of is helping build and scale the electronic execution and prime broking offerings that we have here at Standard Bank. When we started, we were ranked 6th on the exchange. This is quite a few years back. And from there, we climbed, right? We moved for 2 years in a row. Now we've been number one, the number one equities trading broker on the JSE, and we in line now, hopefully for the 3rd year running. It wasn't about getting more clients and more flow. It was building a proper infrastructure, a low touch DMA business. We brought in the best of class risk checks, and that happens in nanoseconds using FPG acceleration, full fixed connectivity, and collateral and funding engine behind that, so that the desk can actually take on risk safely. So my career basically started in engineering, moved closer to the markets, and now I'm kind of set in the middle, translating between the two, what the traders want to do and what systems allow them to do. So that's a little bit about my background, eh?
Wow, that's incredible. And I think it demonstrates how you can have a certain background or academic background, but you can often pivot into a different industry as well. What's also important is that you mentioned that you joined the ABSA Capital graduate development program, and I think that's really important because I'm also a graduate of the Standard Bank graduate program, and although we move into different corporates at points in time, I think it's that grounding that really supports us at the beginning stages of our career in terms of mentorship and support and just understanding the fundamentals of an industry. So to the listeners, I think it's important to understand what's out there and to also participate in these graduate programs if you can. The Korea Indaba Career Day next year will showcase a lot of those graduate programs as well. So it's important that young people put themselves out there to grasp the opportunities that do exist, because they do actually exist as well. Okay, so Mohammed, we're going to get playing the game now. As Mzwandile said, we've had three amazing guests before you. They've all been really competitive. So are you ready to play the game?
Yes, let's go for it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so when most people hear global markets, they think trading floors and flashing screens, but the real action often happens behind the scenes, as you mentioned, with financing and collateral. Can you just explain a little bit more about how this part actually keeps the systems running and the markets moving?
Okay, perfect. So this is where we talk about liquidity and counterparty risk and collateral, right? When people picture markets, they usually picture a trade, basically buying, selling, hedge, and we're done. But the truth in the real world, it starts after the trade. Global markets only function is two that are true. One, there is always liquidity, and two, everyone in the system can trust each other that they will pay what they owe, right? So this is where collateral and funding comes in. In simple terms, when two institutions trade with each other, especially in leverage products, derivatives, prime brokerage, SEC lending, they are taking counterparty risk. So in order to manage that, we hold collateral against the exposures. So collateral is basically, here's good quality assets. I'm posting to prove that I can cover my side if anything goes wrong. It protects both sides. If it protects the bank, it protects the market stability. So where I sit, my team, we sit in the middle, right? We monitor real-time exposures. We know which clients are long, which clients are short, what they've borrowed, what they're financing, and we make sure they posted enough collateral of the right quality. That it's not just do you have money, it's do you have the eligible assets that hold value under stress. So liquidity management is the second part. In prime services in Delta One, clients often want synthetic exposure. So this is where the client wants exposure to a particular stock, for example, like an equity, but not physically owning the stock. They just want the exposure to the stock. So that creates balance sheet usage on the bank side. So the bank will fund that that trading activity, give the client that exposure. And what we do, we constantly optimize. How do we fund that exposure? How do we finance the borrow? How do we source the stock? How do we recycle that inventory and still stay with the right risk appetite? What looks like a smooth market on screen is actually a massive daily machine of margin calls, collateral substitution, settlement, concentration limits, capital charges, all managed by the hour. If we get that wrong, trading stops. So we get the right clients can take risk and sorry, my English is bad. Intermediate that risk, and the market keeps moving. So the short answer is the market runs on trust, and trust runs on collateral.
You know, Mohammed, I mean, in '08, you know, the entire world kind of learned very hard lessons about not managing counterparty risk well. So I think, you know, that's deep insight from the engine room, which really, I think, educates a lot of people about how we run, you know, orderly financial markets, and in fact, the massive role that you play in doing this. I mean, you moved to Tile 5 liquidity master, as you are now known for now. Mohammed, a quick one. As markets become more digital, right? Technology is reshaping collateral management, from automation to blockchain. How is innovation changing how we value and move assets?
Okay, so this is where tech automation real-time risk blocks come into play, right? The biggest shift that we've seen end of the day exercise is now basically instant, right? 10 years ago, you do your trading during the day, and after the close, you would reconcile exposure, margin, funding, and all of that. Today, especially in electronic execution and prime, this is happening real time, right? For example, if a client sends an order through our low-touch DMA channels, it's not just routed to the market in nanoseconds. We're checking, does the client have enough inventory, or is there enough funding capacity to take on this position? What will the concentration be for the client's portfolio? Is it within regulatory thresholds? Do we have balance sheet? We have a very high-speed infrastructure, FPGA-based pre-risk checks, full fixed connectivity, as I mentioned earlier. So we have a very wide spread of client types and stereotypes that we manage. Then we also got the full automation of collateral itself, right? Historically, margin calls were very manual. Someone would run a report and calls you, emails you, or please post X amount of margin by a certain time, let it be cash or an asset. Now we're moving to straight through margining exposure moves. We will detect and calculate what's owed, and some cases the collateral can actually be allocated and booked automatically across agreements without even waiting for a human, right? It reduces disputes. It also reduces operational risk. So AI and analytics play an important role here in monitoring this type of behavior. You can now model stress scenarios continuously. So if the market gaps 5, 10, 15%, which would raise a lot of alarms, then you can actually know which clients now you need to reach out and who's about to reach their limits. And we can already start calling for margin at that point, quite early. So the client is well aware to either reduce their risk exposure or fund their margin call, right? So this is something that we do from a day-to-day and a real-time basis, right? And then also there's regulation, right? Regulators increasingly expect real-time visibility of things like capital usage, settlement risk, even best execution. So innovation in our world isn't just about doing faster and for the sake of the speed, right? It's using the tech to make sure that the business can scale safely without adding 10 more people every time volume doubles, right? So we've spent a lot of time in our automation space. We run very lean teams, but we are very, very efficient. So the role of innovation in collateral and liquidity is a must, and it's instant. We make sure make sure it's controlled and make sure it's provable, right? So that's very, very important pieces in our business, eh?
Okay, you've tokenized that question straight to tile 10, collateral innovator. You're doing really well, Mohammed. On to question number 3. Global finance often feels far away from the African reality, but that's changing fast. Where do you see Africa's biggest opportunities in global markets innovation?
So Africa is a very interesting topic, right? So this is where Africa opportunity and talent comes into play, right? I actually don't think Africa is far from global finance anymore. I think Africa is a test bed at the moment. There are a few areas that we're really seeing it. The first one is access. So historically, if you were an institutional client, say Johannesburg, Nairobi, even Lagos, and you wanted exposure in a certain theme, let it be within tech or commodities or sustainability, you often used to go to an offshore, invest in an offshore structure that weren't built with you in mind, right? Specifically looking for Africa exposure, right? Now that's what we're doing now in the Delta One space and in the prime space, is creating structures accessed locally with proper funding, proper custody, especially proper collateral. In that way, we're still able to plug into global liquidity. That's powerful because it means Africa capital is no longer just taking what's available; it's able to express a view. Second is cross-border flow. We're starting to look and see more profitability, client listing in one more market, but needing liquidity in another, or financing a position in South Africa that's actually referencing something in the global space. That creates the need for proper collateral frameworks within the whole continent, not back office admin, but proper risk infrastructure that global players are comfortable with. So we have to also keep in mind that, global players have certain regulations and criteria that they require from investing in a product or taking on risk within a certain country. So we need to make sure we meet the regulatory needs. And that's a space where South Africa is particular can lead in, right? Third is sustainability linked products. A lot of the global investors are under pressure to show their capital support and real outcomes. Africa is where those outcomes are most visible: energy, transition, infrastructure, food, and security. Trying financial terms or margin treatment and sustainability targets are going to become more normal. I think we will see price directly into funding, collateral agreements, and also before the developed markets used to do, because it's a balance sheet. It's balance sheet relevant, if that makes sense, right? And the last piece is talent. To be honest, that kind of work we do, electronic execution, real-time risk, collateral optimization, that used to be only found in the tier one banks in the global space, right? I'm very proud to be to let our listeners know that within South Africa, in Johannesburg, we have South African quants and engineers and technologists that don't need to leave the continent to get this world class working exposure. They can get that type of exposure directly here within South Africa. And you can walk abroad once you have these type of skills, and it's we literally at the doorstep of tier one capabilities. So there's a lot of potential still in South Africa and within Africa. There's lots to still do, and it's a great place to grow your career.
Boom. And with that, tile 15, right, Mohammed? Continental connector. For my next question, quick one, right? In banking, risk and innovation often live side by side. How do you innovate responsibly when you're dealing with billions in exposure?
Yeah. So, see, that's a very interesting one. So, coming from an engineering background into finance, you look at a number and you often wonder to yourself, this is a big number. And first it starts with growing up, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, 1 billion, and even 2 trillions, right? So the number just keeps on growing, and that's the kind of exposure that I've actually witnessed through my lifetime, actually. So this is where governance, control, and culture comes in. It's probably the most important question, because markets innovation without discipline is just a nice way of saying future headline, right? There's a few layers that we have to manage here, right? The first layer is control framework. Nothing goes into production without its new execution channel or new margining model or new funding structure, without going through the governance, legal risk, credit compliance, and ops. You may think you have to jump through all these hurdles. It does take a long time, but to be honest, who takes on the risk and how is it monitored? That's what and also if it breaks. So all those areas that you have to cover first before you take a product live, you kind of answering all those questions, like where the risk sits, how is it monitored, and how does and if it breaks, what are the procedures we need to follow. The second layer is modeling. We offer something that to the client, we have our own special models that we do for stress testing, especially on our prime side. So a lot of the clients' portfolios, we on a daily basis, we put it through our margining model, which then takes into account a lot of factors, especially the stress period, as you mentioned earlier in 2008. That is our stress period that we apply any portfolio against. And also when it comes to concentration, what if liquidity disappears? What do we do? How do we manage those collateral calls? And because it's no use on just onboarding flow because it looks profitable, it can also become unmanageable if there's a shock, right? So we have to take into account, the modeling part. We have a lot of quants that also assist us in that area specifically. And then there's the automation that breaks that comes in, the machine that does everything. In the real world, actually, the machine prevents you from doing things you shouldn't be doing. For example, pre-trade risks, low-touch equities aren't just there to be fast. They are there to make sure that they physically cannot execute in order and breach risk appetites or breach clients' mandates, and remove the human temptation to say just this once, if you know what I mean, right? And then the very last one, I think it's more culture. On the trading floor, there's always a commercial pressure. That you have to get used to it. But you need a culture where someone junior can say no if they're not comfortable and they're respected. We talk a lot about P&L, but we talk just as much about capital usage, balance sheet consumption, regulatory expectations. You have to normalize that language, especially when you're sitting in meetings. So, we can innovate, build, test, destroy, wrap it. And once it's broken, then we wrap it with controls and we scale it in a controlled way. We make sure that whatever we build, we do our utmost best to break it first, understand where it breaks, and we fix it from there, and we keep on growing and scaling as we go along. So yeah, I'll just give you some background for our listeners. We run a swap book, a TRS swap book for equities on the Standard Bank side. We're running almost close to 150 billion worth of gross exposure, and we optimize that book constantly just to make sure that we obviously have certain limits from a treasury perspective, and we look for creative ways to raise funding and collateral, and ways to optimize the collateral as well to help finance client positions. So we run very huge numbers. We work with very huge numbers, but this is a day-to-day thing for us.
Amazing. You're the guardian of innovation on Total 20. So quickly moving on for our young listeners, those dreaming of working in global markets, what's the one thing you wish you had known earlier on in your career?
So I would say is mentorship and advice, and I'll probably touch on two of them. The first one is my advice to people would be understand the fundamentals properly. Everyone wants to get the front story, trading, strategy, P&L, the sexy stuff. But people who really become valuable, I would think, in this business is actually to understand how the system works end to end. How does a trade book? How does settlement work? What is margin? Where does the risk actually sit? If you can answer those questions and you can sit in any meeting, if you can't, you'll always be dependent on someone else in the room to guide you, right? So if you have the full understanding of the bigger picture, you are very valuable in the space. The second one is relationships. Look, coming from an engineering background by training. So at the start, I thought if I build the best system, that's enough. It's not. Your network is more important. It's about having people who will teach you things that you're not supposed to know yet. It can only be made from engineering into an actual prime business because someone has so the only way I managed to make my way into, like, I'll say, global markets is I had a very strong. Well, I used the person was my mentor at the time. Soon left the bank, but he saw the potential that I offered and gave me a chance to get my foot in the door, I would say, on the trading desk. So my advice is to everyone, to all our listeners, is, build depth, build trust, and stay teachable. There's always something to learn. There's always challenges out there on a daily basis. We always face with challenges, especially in the space and global markets. I encourage everyone to actually think about, do you want to be a trader one day? What does it take? And hopefully this little piece of insight will encourage people to get into the space. It's a very exciting space. It's a very fast-paced space. Things can go wrong very quickly, and things can go right really quickly as well. So anyone's up for the challenge, please go for it.
Amazing.
Mohammed, that's some really wise words. And I mean, I really enjoy the fact that you've carried on the theme of mentorship, because that came up, with Nomzamo, and as a really key aspect of how to achieve growth in the financial markets. That takes you to TAL 25, Global Markets Trailblazer.
Incredible. So thank you for demystifying the world of collateral and showing us how innovation and prudence can coexist. Thanks a lot, Mo.
Thank you, Soraya. It's been a fun climb. Only one margin call I want today is, I wish you guys have a lot more listeners, eh?
Thanks.
Thanks, Mohammed. Thank you so much.
Thanks, appreciate it. Cheers, eh?
Let's talk skill. Let's talk survival. Let's talk future. Career Talk brings Africa's changemakers to one table, where hiring meets hope. It's insight that moves you forward. It's leadership with purpose. Real talk, real growth. Career Talk, because the future of work starts with you.
Welcome back to Career Ladder. We've climbed the ladder through data, trading, strategy, and collateral, and now we're stepping into the cloud.
Our final guest, last but definitely not least, is the head of data solutions at the JSE, where he has been leading groundbreaking cloud-based initiatives and innovation. He's redefining how Africa's largest exchange manages and delivers data. Please welcome Vimal Singh.
Thanks, Mzwandile. Thanks, Soraya. I'm quite happy to be here today.
Great stuff. Okay, so Vimal, the view from the top is always worth the climb. We want to get you to the top this morning and close out our show. But before we begin, tell us a little bit about yourself and just for our listeners to get familiar with you, what you studied and your background.
Thanks, Soraya. So I've always been curious about numbers, people, and the world. My journey started with a deep love for numbers, which led me to study statistics and mathematics. But alongside that, I've also had a passion for travel and exploring new cultures. Whether visiting new places or engaging with data leaders, those experiences have really shaped how I think about innovation and impact. So I've worked in financial services for 20 years with roles focused in data and analytics. Along the way, I've held roles at RMB, Standard Bank, and Accenture. And now I lead the data solutions team at the JSC, where I'm reimagining how Africa's largest exchange manages and delivers data. We've moved our market data to cloud native platforms and launched some market data products that are starting to shape smarter decisions and build semantic models that make data more intuitive and accessible. What excites me most isn't just the tech, it's the people. So I'm quite passionate about using data to drive strategic decisions and empower teams. I really believe innovation happens when you give people the space to think boldly, take ownership, and challenge the status quo. I've seen how curiosity and collaboration can turn good ideas into transformative solutions, and that's a culture we're building on, one that where data meets purpose and people drive change. So yes, the climb has been steep at times, but every step has been worth it. And honestly, I'm energized more than ever about what lies ahead.
Amazing. Let's kick off your career ladder. I'm excited to get into it. So, are you ready for the first question?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, let's go. Data is the backbone of every modern exchange, but moving data to the cloud is a big leap. What made the JSC decide this was the moment to go all in on cloud transformation?
That's a great question. For us at the JSC, the decision to go all in on cloud wasn't just about technology. It was about readiness, strategy, and vision. We are operating on legacy systems that served us well, but they were starting to limit our ability to scale, innovate, and quickly respond to market needs. The cloud offered us a way to break free from those constraints and to build infrastructure that's agile, secure, and future proof. Scalability was also a big driver as part of the data volumes grow and client demands become more complex. We needed platforms that could handle the growth without compromising performance. Cloud gives us that flexibility. We can scale up and down based on demand. Accessibility was another key factor. With cloud, we can deliver products faster, more reliable, and to a broader range of clients, both locally and globally. It's also enabled us to shorten our innovation cycles. What used to take months now takes weeks, and we have an end goal of taking days. So that's where we aiming for. And of course, there's efficiency. We move from heavy capital expenditure to a more flexible consumption-based model. This frees up resources and teams to invest in innovation, talent, and client experience. Uh, Perhaps most importantly, cloud has also allowed us to rethink how we work. It's not just a tech shift, it's a cultural shift. We building a more collaborative, data-driven organization where teams can experiment, iterate, and deliver value faster. So yes, the leap to cloud was bold, but it was the right leap at the right time, and it's already transforming how we operate, innovate, and serve the market.
Cool. That's visionary leadership, Vimal. I mean, you're going straight to tile 5, cloud pioneer.
Wow.
Tell me, when you're running one of Africa's most data intensive organizations, I mean, this is a fact. Innovation has to happen at scale. How do you build systems that are both powerful and flexible?
That's exactly the challenge we face. So building systems that are robust enough to handle massive volumes of data, but agile enough to evolve with the market needs. At the JC, we have embraced a modular architecture built on APIs and microservices. This allows us to decouple components, scale independently, and integrate new capabilities without disrupting the core. It's like building with Lego blocks. You can keep adding, reshaping, and improving without starting from scratch. Flexibility also comes from how we govern our data. We are exploring strong data governance features in cloud to ensure consistency, security, and compliance, but without slowing down innovation. It's about thinking about the right balance between control and creativity. Another key is driving self-service business intelligence. We're making data more accessible across the organization, not just to our technical teams, but to business users, strategists, and even clients. That means building intuitive interfaces, semantic models, and self-service tools that empower people to explore, analyze, and act on the data. And finally, we design for change. Markets evolve and clients' expectation grows. So we build with adaptability in mind, systems that can pivot, scale, and respond quickly. In short, Mzondile, powerful systems are built on smart architecture, strong governance, and culture of collaboration. And that's how we innovate at scale.
Wow, you've just engineered the perfect answer. Proceed to tile 10, our innovation architect. That's what you're called right now. So once you have all the data in motion, the next frontier is turning it into intelligence. How is the JSE using analytics to create smarter markets?
Thanks, Rhea. So I think that's where things are getting really exciting. So at the JSE, we're not just collecting data, we're building it into insights and ultimately into action. One of our flagship innovations is the JSE Trade Explorer. It's a world-first tool that gives clients deep real-time visibility into trading activity. It helps with understanding market dynamics, identifying patterns, and making more informed decisions. It's not just analytics, it's analytics at the client's fingertips. We're also investing in and setting the rails for predictive analytics and machine learning. These tools will allow us to anticipate market movements, detect anomalies, and even forecast liquidity trends. That's a game changer both for internal operations and client strategy. But what makes our approach unique is that it's client-led. We co-creating with our users, listening to their needs, testing ideas, and building solutions that solve real problems. That feedback loop is critical to making analytics meaningful. Ultimately, smarter markets are built on smarter data. And by combining the advanced analytics with deep market expertise, we helping shape more transparent, efficient, and intelligent financial ecosystem.
You know what? That's pure alpha from analytics, right? Welcome to Tile 15, Data Visionary. So importantly though, Vimal, digital transformation is about technology, but it is also about people. Now, what skills and mindsets do you think the next generation of innovators in financial markets will need?
So absolutely, while technology is the enabler, it's the people who drive the transformation. For the next generation of innovators, I think data literacy is foundational. Whether you're in finance, strategy, or operations, understanding how to interpret and use data is no longer optional. It's essential. Then there's cloud fluency. As more of our infrastructure is moving to cloud, being more comfortable with cloud native tools, platforms, and ways of working will be a huge advantage. But beyond the technical skills, also believe curiosity is a key. The best innovators are the ones who question why not, who challenge assumptions and explore new possibilities. Collaboration is another big one. The problems we solve today are too complex for one person or one team. You need to work across disciplines, across silos, and even across organizations. And finally, adaptability. The pace of change in financial markets is only accelerating. The ability to learn and unlearn and pivot quickly will separate those who thrive from those who struggle. So yes, the future belongs to those who are technically sharp, but also open-minded, collaborative, and constantly learning.
Wow, the skills for tomorrow. You've made it to TAL 20 Innovation Mentor, and you're closing it out now, Vimal. This is the final question in our career ladder game, and it's a career ladder classic. You've worked across technology, strategy, and data innovation. What keeps you motivated to keep climbing?
For me, it's about purpose, curiosity, and impact. So I've always been driven by the idea that data can unlock better decisions and smarter systems. So the sense of purpose, knowing that the work we do helps shape the financial future of South Africa and the continent, it is motivating. Curiosity plays a big role too. Technology is evolving fast, and every day brings something new to learn, explore, challenge, and I love that. The constant opportunity to grow, rethink, and imagine. And then there's impact, seeing ideas turn into products, strategies into outcome, and teams into innovators that keeps me climbing. It's not just about personal achievement, it's about building something that lasts, something that matters. So yes, the climb is steep, but the journey is exciting, and as long as there's change to lead and value to create, I'll keep climbing.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you finish strong. Thank you, Vimal. I mean, you've reached TAL 25 Cloud Trailblazer.
It is a pleasure being here, Mzondile and Surya. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Vimal. And thank you for closing out our career ladder game this morning with a look into the future where data, innovation, and vision all converge to shape the next generation of financial markets.
Thank you.
Awesome. And that wraps up our
Future-proofing
career
skills
ladder. I
for
mean,
economic growth. Career Indaba Expo and Bootcamp. 15th
From
to
strategy,
16th of May
trading to
2026
data in the cloud.
is Africa's boldest sector-aligned and solution-driven career development event designed to bridge the skills gap, unlock real unemployment pathways, and future-proof talent across over 20 industries. From the boardrooms of Sandton to the villages of rural South Africa, we are pulling the entire country into one decisive moment to tackle unemployment, close the skills gap,